Afternoon, everybody. This is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast, where I have the amazing opportunity each and every week to bring you some guests that will be highlighted on the show and also provide our listeners with some motivation, inspiration, and education. Today, we have Mr. Joey Escobar, who is a martial arts professional who began his training under Chuck Norris in 1968. Transitioning to teaching in 1978, he has been the owner and operator of Malibu Martial Arts for over 25 years. With an illustrious career, Escobar boasts a remarkable record as a 13-time international champion, international grand champion, Battle of Atlanta grand champion, 5-time national champion, and 4-time Pan Am champion. Notably, he served as a team member and captain of the U.S. karate team, showcasing his prowess on the global stage. So this is Joey Escobar. Welcome to the Master Motivation Podcast.
Hi, Jason. How you doing?
I am super excited. Let's see who's watching. If you guys are out there watching live, I would love for you to post your comments and let us know who you are. I know that we had Roger Lacombe, we had Tom Bloom, we had some other great black belts out there that I'd love to hear either questions from you guys for Joey or any stories, any little backstories that you got. You know, what I think is cool, Joey, is we've both kind of been in this area and in this profession for a long time. You longer than me, of course. But we're surrounded by a lot of the same friends and within this our system in the competition scene. And so it's going to be awesome to rehash some old stories. And I am looking forward to some history lessons from you.
Okay.
So my first question is going to be, what was your motivation, or what is your motivation as a martial artist, as an instructor?
Well, teaching kids, basically, and getting adults in shape, teaching what I've learned over the 50-something years that I've been training and learning. My dad was a professional boxer, so he always taught me to keep my hands up, always make sure your hands aren't tight as fists, clenched hard, like you can put a pencil through here, and when you make contact, that's when you squeeze, that's when you do that. So I learned that from a little kid, and just to share the knowledge that I've learned over these years and some of the experiences I've had.
Well, this is where the history lesson is going to come in, and I love that you led in with the fact that your motivation is to teach kids, and it sounds like to pass on the knowledge that was passed on to you and hand that down for generations to come. So, man, 1968 started with Chuck Norris.
Out of Sherman Oaks Karate.
Great stories there. So tell me, how did you get started in the martial arts?
That's when like Bruce Lee came out, and I saw a neighbor down the street wearing a uniform, and it was a kid smaller than me. It was Phil Paley, who was one of Chuck Norris's first black belts, and he was like 10 years old when he got his black belt. And I saw him, and he had a red belt on, and I go, wow, I want to do that, Dad. I want to do that. And my uncle said, hey, there's a Joe Louis karate down the street. So I went in there. I think Roger told the story when I went in there to the studio, and Chuck had just bought it. Well, Mr. Norris had just bought it from Joe Louis. And there's a gentleman there that kind of looked like Joe Louis. And I asked him, I go, are you Joe Louis? And he goes, I absolutely am. And the guy was such a great salesman, just this master of sales. He said, yes, sir, I am Joe Louis. And my dad signed up for a lifetime membership. And that was Bob Wall.
Wow.
who said he was Joe Louis at the time. And so that was a great story. I know Roger told that story on this cast a few months ago, but that was a great experience to have Bob Wall there. I've grown up with a lot of legends that I looked up to. The late Pat Johnson, who just passed away, was one of my instructors for years, and I've had a whole slew of instructors that I could call actual instructors and stuff, and friends.
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing up Pat Johnson. He is at the top of the food chain, or the top of our lineage for our system, with Dennis Ichikawa as my instructor. That's who I started with. And, he had so many great things to say and so many lessons that he learned from Pat Johnson and Chuck Norris, of course. And so, I always wonder, so help me out here. I asked Roger the stories too. And so you and Roger and Tom, I think, came a little bit later, and Mr. Ichikawa, like, all big names in the Tong Soo world within the Conejo Valley or the surrounding area, really, really close knit. So how did you guys all did you guys all train together? Did you guys meet in the early days? You started real early,
Well,
68.
yeah, I
so.
started as a kid. I was 8 years old when I started. And so I did the kids stuff. And they were a little bit older than me. But I remember Dennis, Mr. Ichikawa, or Master Ichikawa, when he first came. I think I was a green belt. And he first came in to the studio and became a manager. And they promoted him through the ranks with Bob Burbage and this a whole group of. I'm so lucky. A lot of kids. I say this when one of the heroes passed away, like the Howard Jacksons or whatever. A lot of kids have superheroes as a kid. I had these masters, these martial artists, the Pat Johnsons, Chuck Norrises, the Bob Whites, and the Steve, the Muhammad, Mr. Muhammad, and all these guys that I'd go to these tournaments and see these guys would fight. They were my heroes. So that was kind of cool to grow up with those guys being my heroes. The Bob Burbages, and the list goes on.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you bring it up that way, because I like you as a young child. I had two sets of superheroes. Pro wrestling. Hulk Hogan and all that. Right, I was a huge pro wrestling fan. But then also, just like you, those black belts. Man, I didn't need Spider-Man. I didn't need Batman. I had the real deal. I had some amazing black belts that I was able to train with and learn from. And the one of my favorite parts of training with Mr. Chikawa was always we would have this session where after all the classes were over, we would all kind of do our forms, but it wasn't really doing the forms that I love doing the forms, but I loved hearing him tell stories about the people you're talking about, Pat Johnson, Bob Burbage, Chuck Norris, and how the training was so different then than it was when he was telling us the stories. And this for me was like, late 80s, early 90s. And now here we are in, 2023, it's even more different now than it was then. So tell me, as an 8-year-old training with all these guys back in the day, what was training like?
It was hard. Mr. Johnson was pretty gnarly. I don't know if I come off like that where these kids are scared of me or whatever, but he was intimidating, but loving also too. And I try to teach like that also, where the parents go, oh, they're so afraid of you. They can't ask you that. They can't ask you this question. I go, well, yes, of course they can. So I think he was a real good-hearted man, but that's not how I saw him. I saw him as this like rock of a man. Just, even though he wasn't real super tall, he was a giant. I mean, he was a giant to an 8-year-old kid. I was a blue belt. It was Sherman Oaks karate. And he one of the best, as you train and as you go through the martial arts, you get little sayings, little people say something to you, maybe a compliment here or there that stick with you. I've competed, and one of my number one competitors says, it's going to be a tough fight. Now I heard him over saying somebody, mine was his next fight, and he was like my number one competitor. Actually, it's Barry Gordon. I heard him say to somebody, my next fight's going to be kind of tough, and that's when I'm like, yeah, I made it. But Mr. Johnson, going back to, I'm rambling on, sorry. But Mr. Johnson said, you're my favorite blue belt. You're my favorite blue belt. This mat is yours. This piece of mat. It was like 3x3. It was an old canvas mat. It was a white canvas mat. The old, how the studios had the canvas mats back there with the tape rings.
Right.
He goes, this mat right here from here to here. It's like, he goes, is yours. That has your name on it. It's all yours. So stuff like that. It's just you just remember little things like that carry on with you for the rest of your life. Yeah. So here's a man that 55 years ago said, this mat is yours. And I'll always remember that. So he was a real good man, but you're still kind of like a pit bull kind of. You don't want to, you just kind of, they're lovable and they're sweet dogs, but you just kind of, just a little afraid of it. Right.
Well, they say there's a fine line between fear and respect, and I think that he had both.
Yes.
Well, isn't it powerful as instructors in the position that we're in, that we have the opportunity to impact lives so dramatically at that early age? And when you know what? I take that back. Not just for young children, but even for the adults that we teach, for us to make a comment, because I'm sure that you've had many times where you have students And you've said something similar to that, you know?
Oh yeah,
And now they remember it years later, and it's still like it feels just as good now as it did then. And they just really hang on to that, because I know coming up, you know, let's just call it old school for lack of a better term. You know, when you come up in the old school way, getting a compliment from your instructor was very far and few between. I mean, the compliments did not flow. We didn't talk about positive reinforcement. We didn't talk about, you know, all the coddling and lovey-dovey and thinking so much about people's feelings. All it was just like, when you're on the mat, it's business, you know, and it was tough.
You'd hear back then, hey, you know, the instructor would go, maybe 2 or 3 of you guys will get a black belt. Maybe there's 40 kids in class right now. Maybe 2 or 3 will come out and get a black belt like me. And it's different now. You got to say, hey, every one of you guys can get a black belt. That's that's kind of like the way it is now. You have to, you know, the ones that strive through and that actually put the work in and stuff. Because I'm still old school. I don't hand out belts, but the ones that do, you know, achieve the black belt and get to that, they've earned it. But I don't teach in the sense of, hey, only a few of you guys are going to do it. All of them are going to be able to. They have the opportunity to. You know, they might not all be superstars, but back in the day too, when you'd have a black belt test, even a red belt test, there'd be 100 people there, and they weren't even like family members. They were just people to come watch a black belt test. So it was definitely different back then.
It was different, and I think that there's a lot of good that still came from that time, and things that we still use in our schools, and how we've adjusted and changed. Because, you know, I'm sure, you know, many people that are watching right now, the school owners that are watching, or black belts that are watching, you know, everybody wants to, I think everybody wants it to be tough to be a black belt, but I think the difference is that back in the day, it was used as a, it was used as a fear factor. You know, it's like, oh, yeah, out of 100 people, you know, 2 people will earn their black belt, right? And it was a fear factor. And I think we could still say the same thing without scaring them into it, because let's face it, students have to have discipline to earn their black belt. Students have to work hard to earn their black belt. They have to be dedicated to earn a black belt. I don't know any school out there. I really don't. I don't think that any school out there is intentionally handing out a black belt. I think that everybody is trying to make it difficult. The difference now is that, you know, I think we really want to see everybody earn their black belt. We really, truly do. And we want to spread the good in martial arts, because we learned all the good from martial arts back then, even though it wasn't told to us in that way. Right now, we're so focused on how we communicate the positive benefits of martial arts. We didn't talk about the positive benefits of martial arts. We just received them. I think now we're just better at communicating it, and we really want to see people earn their black belt. But at the end of the day, you know, parents quit on their kids, and kids want to move on to the next, you know, shiny new object. And there's so many distractions and different things. I think the numbers, you know, are what they are. We just had a black belt test this last weekend, and I said, I'm so tired of hearing that only so many people out of so many people will earn a black belt. I said, I want to see every one of you here that earn your black belt today. I want to see you back for 2nd degree. I want to see you back for 3rd degree. I want to see you back for 4th degree, knowing in my mind that life will probably weed them out, or something may pull them away. I get it. But like, I really want to plant those seeds that martial arts is a way of life. Black belt is not the end, right? We all harp on this all day long, right?
Absolutely. It was, especially for us. It wasn't definitely the end for us. But you do have that student though that you they earn a black belt, and you see they come to a couple classes, and the parents call you up, or they call you up and say, you know, can you discontinue our membership? We're gonna do something else now. So that does kind of break your heart too, because you put a lot of love and hard work into these students, and when they do achieve a black belt, it's supposed to be the beginning of something new too.
Sure.
I remember my best class I ever had was when I had the black belt. I had the first class I wore my black belt, and it felt so good. It felt so good to do that. And you know, here 40 something years later, I'm still wearing it.
And it's
Except when I
getting
do
better.
jiu-jitsu, I put a white belt on when I do jiu-jitsu. That's in my own school. That's kind of pretty funny. Been a black belt for 40 years, and I've got to put a white belt on. I don't even have a
But
stripe yet.
listen, isn't that what it's all about? I mean, you
Yeah,
put that black
absolutely.
belt on for the first time. It is.
Yeah.
It's just the start of a new journey, and it's exciting. You know, it's exciting to be. You know, it's hard to be at the top. You know, it's kind of exciting to start over again. I've done
Yeah.
it as well, where you know you put that white belt on. I remember putting a white belt on one time in my school to take one of our classes that we were doing next, and the students all looked at me like, "What are you doing?"
I know.
And I'm like, this is so awesome. Like I get
Yeah.
to be just like you guys and
Exactly.
learn, all over
Exactly.
again. I think that that's an important part of
Yeah.
being a black belt is being able to humble yourself enough to say, yeah, I earned a black belt. I mean, I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And there's more to learn. And I think that's the example that is really good for our students to see when we're able to do that.
I do that too. When I have a black belt come in to train with me, I say, you have some great instructors. You're obviously a black belt. Let me teach you some things, and use what I like, what you like. You don't like something, don't use it. You want to keep your hands down a little lower, that's fine. You want to keep up higher, that's fine. But just let's try it my way for a little bit, and I'll explain why I think it works.
Mm-hmm.
I'll explain why I think that this is a way I teach it, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Because I've had so many different instructors, trainers. Because I do still like learning. I still like and filtering out. There is some BS in the martial arts. Filtering out that stuff with stuff that actually kind of does work and works for me. Maybe not for someone else, but it works for me.
Well, it's just like success. Success is different to everybody, right? Success means something different to everything. Your definition of success is going to be different than mine. Well, in martial arts, my body type might be different than your body type, and things might
Exactly.
work better for me than they work for you, or even just teaching techniques. Sometimes, not every student learns the same way. I want to go back for a second because you talked about when black belts stop training that kind of breaks your heart a little bit. And I was actually talking with my instructors about this, and I think about school teachers. Think about a school teacher who spends an entire year, like literally every day for several hours a day. And they graduate kindergarten, they graduate first grade, they graduate second. Every year, they're kind of moving on to a different teacher. I couldn't imagine how that feels because I get so close to my students, and I create such a culture and a relationship in our school with our students that, man, if I had to change students every year, that would be so hard for me. But even still, like we had students starting our little Dragons program, they're turning 9, 10 years old. We've had them 5, 6, 7 years, and man, that's hard. It is heartbreaking. And even with the ones that are with me until they're graduating high school, and then I lose them to going off to college, or they're with me until they're an adult, and then I lose them because they're getting married and they're moving away. People don't realize that martial arts is more than martial arts. Martial arts is more than the kicking and the punching, right? The relationships we build and the bonds that we create with our students, our instructors, and our mentors is so great.
Yeah. And I do thank the class too. I said, hey, I enjoy being part of your guys' life. Maybe at dinner table, my name will be mentioned. When you guys are all sitting and having dinner, they'll say, Mr. Escobar did this, Mr. Escobar said this, and I always tell them I appreciate that.
Yeah. How about the parents that tell their kids, if they're misbehaving, I'm gonna go tell Mr. Escobar what you're doing. Why do we have to be the bad guy sometimes?
I've got a good story. I've got a great story. So I don't like giving names out, but I guess you guys will figure out who it is. She's a beautiful blonde Baywatch woman, right? The number one woman. I've had a couple of the Baywatch people in the studio, but this is the number one blonde. Her husband was a drummer. Okay, he was a Motley Crue guy. So I get a phone call from a nanny saying, and this is before cell phones. It was on my recording at my studio. The nanny called me up and says, hey, the 2 kids are acting up. Can you please give me a call at 310-72? And I hear the boys going, la, 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 873-215. All right. So she goes, all right, give me a call. So the nanny called me up to complain about the kids. so I could call him up, whatever. But the boys interrupted the phone number that she gave me, so I could never call back. So, and after testing too, I test on a week, like a Thursday or Friday, and I said, hey, all weekend you have to guys be extra special good, because your parents have my phone number and they'll call me. And if you're not good this weekend, you're not a great, sibling, a great child, a great, even I even do it with adults too. If you're not a great wife or husband, give me a call. You don't pass the test. So this weekend you have to be extra special good. And if I get a phone call I've got one phone call from a lady that says, oh, I don't think my daughter's very good this weekend. And I go like, that's, it's not really supposed to work like that, but I'm supposed to be used as a threat.
We have some good leverage, I think, on our students. Well, hey, listen, my wife is watching and she has a question for you.
Okay.
She wants to know, what are the challenges of being in Malibu demographically? So, listen, you're in a pretty high-end area and you deal with, as you said, celebrities. How does that affect how you teach or what you teach?
Well, you can't beat the students, so it's
not anymore.
They have high-powered lawyers. No, it's just like I think anywhere else, kind of. My son has a school in Lake Tahoe, and Lake Tahoe has a bunch of people that have gone up to Tahoe that are athletes, and athletes make athletes. They're mountain people. They want to ski, they want to snowboard, they want to do all this stuff. So they make athletes.
Right.
I have not that sometimes. I have kids that are extremely intelligent, which really helps in the martial arts. I grew up with dyslexia, so that there was parts of the forms and stuff that I couldn't remember because of my dyslexia. So these other kids are so intelligent. I have one kid that speaks Russian, Mandarin, Spanish, and English, and he's 7 years old.
Wow.
So, yeah. So there's a lot of that. I've had to tone it down, kind of the teaching, the sparring and stuff with the kids in Malibu, because I had a school in Santa Monica, then I went to Lake Tahoe, and different kids, different areas. But it's made me a good living. Yeah, I enjoy my life, so I can't bag on it too much and say they're a bunch of entitled little brats, but some of them are.
Yeah,
and right. Some of the parents too want me to, I don't want to say beat it out of them, because I never abuse my students at all, but kind of be aggressive with them in the sense of, hey, you got to do that wrong. Chibi stance. There's no looking around the room. There's no wiping your face. You got to stand still. You have to down 10 push-ups. That kind of stuff. So there is a bit of that.
Yeah. Well,
the parents know, hey, I have a kid here that's kind of entitled. Work them.
Yeah, right. Well, and if you have a good relationship with the parents, right?
Exactly.
How you teach, I should say, if you have a good relationship with the parents, it makes a huge difference in how again, you can teach their child, right? Because every student learns different, and every student is there for a different reason. But I definitely have some parents that really want to see me, they're old school. They want old school, right? And so, awesome. I have permission to get on them a little bit. And then I have some parents that bring their kids that have, they lack confidence. They don't have the thick skin that, we developed over time, right? Because, if you didn't have thick skin in martial arts coming up, you didn't last. And so you teach them how to have thick skin. My next question for you then is, so you came up old school, right? It was rough, it was tough, it was hard, 10 push-ups, all that, moving should be 10 push-ups, the stern looks, right?
Yeah.
What changed for you? I know what changed for me as an instructor, but what changed for you as an instructor? Because my kids my kids are 21 and 18. My son tells me all the time, he's like, Dad, you're getting soft. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm getting soft? No, I'm not, right? But I am, and it's okay. What changed for you?
I think compassion. I think I have more compassion for humans even. So some kids just can't stand still. So you got to kind of look the other way or whatever if they can't stand still in Chubi stance, or they can't, or they bend their knee in a front stance, or they don't ki loud enough because they don't have developed that voice yet. So it is compassion that we're all a little different. and some of us have different strengths than others. But what I try to do for a black belt test is get the best out of the kid that they can. They're not all like Tom Blooms or guys like that, my students. They're different, because they're built different. They have different brains. They have different, work ethics. I mean, but I try, like I said, everybody that comes to my school, I wanted to have them leave as a black belt. And it takes years. It takes, I have kids that 10 years and they're there all the time because they start as peewees and they go up the ladder and it could be up to 10 years, 8 years, 7 years. It's supposed to be 5, but I kind of hold on to them longer because I want to get the best out of them. And if there's some superstars, there's some kids that compete or whatever, or that are crazy limber, that have gymnastic kicks all over the place and stuff, I try to get the best on that black belt day. My thing is, hey, I don't want you to take 2 black belt tests like I did. I took 2 black belt tests. I didn't fail. I didn't pass the first one. And I just won the internationals as a brown belt, and I was like the number 1 brown belt coming up, and I thought this is gonna be easy, but it wasn't. And even though I had the talent, I didn't have everything that day. It was a bad day for me, so I didn't pass that day. I think everybody else would have passed me, but that day I didn't pass, and I had to wait 6 months more to do my black belt test. But getting back to where the compassion for the students, they're all different. Everybody's different. So I just kind of like look at it that way. And if I can get the best out of that kid for at least 6 months, where they work really, really, really super hard, they make a commitment. They're not doing the after school stuff. They're in the studio working hard for like 3 months before the test. Like that's their commitment. Because a lot of there's plays and there's soccer leagues and there's this and that nowadays when there wasn't when I was a kid, and maybe not when you were a kid too. There's so many different tutors and that's the thing about Malibu too. There's a tutor for everything. There's surf tutors, skateboard tutors. You're like, no, he can't come to class on Thursday because he's got skateboarding. He's getting ready for his black belt. Well, I can't cancel that class. He's skateboarding with coach. Skateboarding. This is black belt. You can't get a black belt in skateboarding. So
So I didn't know that you didn't pass your first black belt test.
Well,
but what you said though, is really important. And it's what you were saying about what you try to get out of your students is that you didn't pass your black belt test the first time because it wasn't a good day. It wasn't, you didn't give the best that your instructor knew you could. And I think that that's what's so great about good leaders is being able to bring out the best in each individual and show them that they really don't have that ceiling that they think they have. Sometimes we push our students in a way that makes them uncomfortable, right? And most people don't like to be uncomfortable, but successful people get comfortable being uncomfortable and pushing themselves outside of that comfort zone. And as instructors, I mean, that's really our job, is to show them that to be their best, and also what they think is their best might not be their full potential. And so it's our job to help them to get to that full potential. And whether it's black belt or it's, second degree black belt or whatever the level is, I mean, that's our goal ultimately. And the thing is that never ends. That's why martial arts never ends. That's why black belt is a great, it's a great place to kind of look at the view, as I say. It's a great place to look at the view, but guess what? You're only at the top of the first mountain. You got plenty more to climb. And let me tell you that the view only gets better as you continue. And, although it might get a little bit harder on the way up, that view is pretty awesome. So I think that that's great that compassion was the word that you used, that you started to understand people more and think about others more, because, as young black belts, I know for myself as a teen black belt, it went straight to my head. It literally went straight to my head. I thought, thumbs in the belt, walking around, being as loud as I could be was what black belt was black belt was all about. And part of it was, that confidence that I gained, but learning how to think about others, put others first, helping others, giving is better than receiving. These are all lessons that, I think our parents teach us anyway, but in the martial arts school, this is just as important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm wondering if there are still anybody out there watching. Again, Roger Lacombe was watching. I'm wondering if he has any questions, or if Tom Bloom is watching. You know, it's funny because Tom's son, Bo, has been training with us in Krav Maga. And he tells me at the gym. He told me at the gym today, he's all, so I might come to class tonight. Do you mind if I bring my dad? I'm like,
oh, wow.
I'm like, are you serious? Like, you know, so if Mr. Bloom, if you're watching and you do come to take Krav Maga tonight, that'll be
Tom Bloom. Who's Tom Bloom?
Awesome.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, yeah, right.
He's one of the guys that I grew up with in martial arts. Even though I started a little bit before him, we were teammates too. We went to traveled and when we won the internationals, he was on the team. Yeah. I put a team together with Satch Williams, Johnny Gyro, which is a dear friend, Tom Bloom, a dear friend, and Jose Pacheco, and we went the internationals when thousands and thousands of people would compete that weekend down in Long Beach.
That's a list of some pretty amazing fighters from back in the day. I mean, like, no doubt. What was that like to fight on that team, and just your experiences in competition? Because some people, I was going to say, some people have amazing experiences in competition, and some people have the opposite. Because sometimes competitions are there's stuff that goes along, right? Whether it be politics or challenges or whatever.
Actually, the politics. What I try to do is I try to be nice to everybody. So if the politics went one way, maybe it went my way one day or something like that. I didn't want to be at the other end of that. So I was kind of a nice guy to everybody, I think. But that team was a pretty special team. We traveled to Guatemala, we traveled around, and it was pretty fun. That's when Sherman Oaks, so we all came kind of out of Sherman Oaks. A lot of us came out of Sherman Oaks or trained there at some time or had a little piece of Sherman Oaks martial arts, whether it was Chuck or Harold Gross and Dennis or Bernie and that group and Ron Ponell. So we all kind of came out of there some way, out of the Sherman Oaks lineage, I guess you'd call it.
Right.
And that's when Pops had Alvin and Barry and Ray Wizard and Leo. And and Dexter and a couple other great, amazing martial artists who I got to be teammates with, and also they were my competition too, because that's who I would fight against or whatever. And so Sherman Oaks had been winning for like 10 years in a row. The Budweiser, there was a Budweiser team. There were teams from back east that couldn't beat them. So I put this team together with Tom and Johnny Gyro and Satch, and Jose jumped on and we beat them. And it was beating our competition, but beating our friends also too. And we banged pretty hard. We'd all go out, some of us left bloody, some of us left bruised, and it was just a great competition. That weekend that I won, I hate bragging, but I'll do it anyways. That weekend I won grand champion that weekend. And I think I had probably about 25 to 30 fights, different people between teams and middleweight, winning the middleweight championship and then fighting all the other guys.
Yeah.
And this is Snowy. And, and I'm talking.
We have a co-host.
Yeah. Okay, buddy. So yeah, that was an amazing weekend that I had, because every August, July, you start training for the internationals. And every August, the internationals happen. And another thing too is I was the last one that Ed Parker gave a grand championship trophy to.
Wow.
That's kind of feels good to say that, even though he's a great man. And I'm sorry that he passed, but he passed a few months after the internationals that year.
Yeah. The Long Beach Internationals was the tournament back in the day. I mean, for me, that's time, and so now, sport karate has really taken off even more so. I mean, if you follow the NASCA circuit at all, I have a very good friend who just did very well in Miami at the Pan Ams and the whole circuit this year. But man, it's sport karate's really evolved.
That's good to see, because I know it died down for a little while because everybody wanted to be a UFC fighter, and
right.
So now it's getting back busy again.
Oh, it's busy, and just sport karate in general has taken off, and with the the CMX divisions, creative, musical, extreme. You got all that stuff out there, but there's still some awesome fighters out there, and some really, really great competitors.
Every once in a while. So I've competed in the 60s. I competed in the 70s. I competed in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s. I haven't yet competed in the 2020s yet. I thought that would be kind of cool to have, I think it's 7 different decades to compete in. So I worked out with Dale Jacoby a couple of times going, I'll go out there and move around with some of the guys my age. Just see what it's like.
There you go. Well, don't call it a comeback.
but it's another thing too, is I don't want someone to go, that's Joey Escobar. Oh my God, you got so old and fat. That guy used to be really good.
Yeah, I bet you do great. Well, listen, so tell me, so Tong Soo Do was your first system in art, and that's what you teach currently, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
A base of it, yes. My own kind of base of that, like everybody else has done, sort of.
And so with all the different people that you've trained with over the years, have you talked about, recently starting more jiu-jitsu. Did you do other system styles?
I trained kickboxing. The reason I didn't compete at that, I had really bad knees. I couldn't wear my knee braces kickboxing. But so I'd go around to different gyms to spar with them and pad up my knee braces and be able to do that, because they were the Kevlar, motocross knee braces that I used to compete with. And in point karate or whatever, I couldn't, they didn't even know. But kickboxing they did. Boxing, I did some amateur stuff boxing. I wanted to be a pro boxer at one time. So I've kind of gone, how guys who do Tong Soo Do and do jiu-jitsu, they kind of do more stuff like that. Like they continue the one steps with more jiu-jitsu stuff. I kind of like have developed more boxing, kind of kickboxing with the Tong Soo Do. So that kind of stuff. We do some weapon stuff, bow staff. I trained one kid that became really, really well known with the bow staff, and he went over to Butch Togasalis and really kind of, really even got even better. He was on the circuit for a while. And, and
that's a blast from the past right there. Butch Togasalis. The flying commas I loved watching him perform.
The Undertaker thing.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, I got to see it all. I got to see, the Benny Urquidez fight. I got to see the Bob Burgess fight. I got to see, when I was a kid, I got to see John Natividad fight, Howard Jackson, go to the tournaments and root for them, and all the way up to Raymond. Actually, Raymond kind of retired me, Raymond Daniels, because I was 40 years old and I went down to Bob White's studio, and I can move around with the guys pretty good and keep up my own, with Mike Pombero and stuff, and hold my own. And Raymond said, "Hey, Mister, it's Joey. You want to go a couple rounds?" Yeah, let's go. Man, I couldn't hit him he just made me feel like less than a white belt. I go, that's time where I kind of like step down from competing like this and let these other younger kids, do their thing, the Jeff Feltons and stuff like that, and just
Raymond Daniels, amazing fighter.
Amazing,
just so fun to watch.
Him and Alvin Prouder, before Alvin got shot, him and Alvin are my two of my favorite modern day black belts that ever lived. Wow. That is just phenomenal.
That's awesome. Now, so let me clear this up. Who was your very first instructor? Who was your instructor?
Well, because it was Chuck Norris studio, right?
Yep.
And he had instructors, of course. And it was a combination between a guy named Vic Guerrero, was like my first class, which no one knows. I think somebody, Roger probably knows who he is. Harold Gross, Pat Johnson, then Harold Gross, then Bob Burbage. They all came into the studio, the Sherman Oaks studio at that time. So it was Pat Johnson, and then Harold Gross, and Bob Burbage.
And who tested
under a red belt?
Who tested you for your black belt?
That's a long story. That's Sherman Oaks. A bunch of guys at Sherman Oaks.
Okay.
The Ron Pinnells, the Alvin Prouders, because what happened was, I started 8 years old, and we moved to Malibu when I was like 10. So we'd have to come all the way out here. So I got up to about my red belt through the Norris system, right? And then I moved to Malibu and I'd surf, and my sister would had a class. My sister was one of Chuck Norris's best women fighters back then. Her and Bob Burbage's sister, Kim Burbage. They were the two number one. Like, she was a lightweight. Kimmy was a heavyweight, and they'd always win the championships. And so we moved out to Malibu. My sister opened a little studio out there at the school, and we teach the Malibu guys back in the 70s and all the old surfer guys. And actually Kurt Lampson, you know Kurt Lampson is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. My sister was his first instructor.
Okay.
So back then, and so I took a long period off of actual, like, I always trained, but I took a long period off. And one day I said, I want to compete again. I want to go back. So I went back to Sherman Oaks, and Ron was there with Pops and that whole group. So I trained. And I think Tom Bloom was part of that too. I think I got my black belt through them.
Okay. Awesome.
So I'm not on the list, even though I know all those guys. I'm not on the Chuck Norris board.
Okay. So yeah. Let's see. So Mr. Chikawa was like number 67.
Yeah.
In the Chuck Norris system, and then and that's when they split.
Yeah.
It went into two different organizations, and you had
with
the National Tong Judo Congress. Yeah. So
and I didn't know who to go with too. I didn't know. I kind of glad I did what I did, because I respect them both so much. Those guys, Chuck Norris and Pat Johnson, I respect them so much. It's like, oh, they split up or whatever. It's like the Congress or the system or whatever, and then Chuck did the Chuck Kundu or whatever, and so they went through. What was I going to say? They went through their separation, and I go like, where do I go? So I kind of did my own thing with my sister out of Malibu. And then I trained. I'd still go to Bob Urbich's school and work out with his students and stuff. And I just kind of, it was kind of a nomad. I'd go to different studios and train with them. And there was a couple Kempo places in Santa Monica, Stewart, Malibu, that I'd go train with. And it's mostly, I'd say 90% of my stuff was sparring and fighting.
Yeah.
And then I said, I want to earn my black belt. I just don't want to put my black belt on, which I know some people have done that and then competed and say, well, I'm a black belt and compete in a black belt. I didn't want to do that. So I went and tested with Ron and those guys.
Yeah. Well, it was pretty common in those days, really, for people to travel to all the, kind of as a group, to all the different schools. I mean, like, having a fight night once a week was kind of like a regular deal back then. And everybody kind of trained with everybody. And it's just so interesting how everybody is so intertwined, but yet, there's all these different organizations and how the lineage split into, different ways. Manny Bujold trained with you. Is that right?
Yeah.
Such a good guy.
My son, him and Manny, they were best friends.
Okay.
My son. And there's something there, he didn't have all the talent in the world. He did not have for sure did not have all the talent in the world. He was, I don't want to say he was uncoordinated, but what he has become was because he worked really hard at it. He was not one of those guys and he loved it. He loved it and loved it and loved it. And he had a great coach with Jose, and his championships were definitely because of his hard work. This guy wasn't that limber, but he has a beautiful round kicks, beautiful kicks. And he just worked at it and said, this is a goal I want to set. And he became a champion. You can't take anything away from that guy. He really became a great champion because of his hard work and dedicating himself and competing. Then there's other people out there that have all this talent in the world and they just don't care about it, and they get older and ride motocross like I do.
Yeah. Well, Manny's doing really well for himself. Has a great school out in Agora Hills. So best of luck to him and to everybody. So I want to talk about that. So you did martial arts, for a huge part of your life, but motocross is also a big part of your life as well.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a sport that I'm a white belt at, or maybe a blue belt. But I just love it. I love putting the outfit on. I love competing. I love the thrill of it. It's something that I go down to Baja and race down there, and go over here to the local tracks here and race. And I race several times a year with the guys my own age and my own level. Right. But that's something about that. I like competing. We were doing jiu-jitsu at the school now, And I asked the coach, hey, when can I compete at this? Because, well, learn what it is first. I go, no, I want to compete. So,
what
I
is
like
it?
competing. It's always in my blood. I like getting the nerves. I like, yeah. So that I race motocross, a couple race a month probably, and have a good time with that. I'm not at an expert level. I'm not at a pro level at all. But, and that feels good too. But I have a whole outfit. I have the bike that looks like I'm a pro, but I sign up with the novice group or intermediate, whatever.
But you're passionate about it. You enjoy it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I follow it. Here's
that's
a
a
real
good part
fast
of life.
story. I know I'm rambling on, but I have a friend who's an ex-pro racer, and I go to these motocross events with him, and he goes up to all the champions and stuff like that, and he goes to my studio, sees 007 or sees Billy the Kid or sees all these or Iron Man. He sees them at my school, all these celebrities and stuff, and he goes, "Wow, you got so many celebrities here." And I go, "Yeah, they're just clients." But I go to these motocross races. They go, "Oh, look who that is! Oh, look that! Oh, introduce me to them!" Oh, like a little kid, like, "Oh, those guys are my heroes now." So it's kind of funny. He goes, "Wow, I can't believe that it switches around when we come to my element where they're just my buddies." And I go to yours, and these guys are A-list celebrities.
Super fun. So what is it? You kind of hit on it a little bit, but competition. Competition seems like it's been in your blood. Were your parents competitive, or did you just find that bug at the early age?
Yeah, my dad was a pro boxer. And a pro football player, semi-pro football player. Ran track. He was a total. He just passed away last August. He was 95, in crazy great shape. Had an accident, so we were expecting to live to 105. But but that was a shock. A lot of the guys, a lot of the team, a lot of the martial arts, because you go to all the tournaments and watch. You go to all the tournaments and watch. So, and I remember, he did real well. And there was times where in the restaurant business where it's kind of like you do well in 1 month and the next month you don't do that well. So, but he would always, the last penny he'd send us to Vegas and fight, and my sister and myself as little kids, and then or whatever. But he'd always contribute to my sports career. So he was a big asset. So the competing, I don't know, just in my blood. Being on a motorcycle really kind of makes me feel free and concentrate. And I have ADD real bad, so I can only stay focused for so long. But when I'm on the track or in Baja, for some reason, I'm focused. I can.
Because if you don't, you're going to crash.
Exactly. Maybe that's what I need. Maybe that's why I was a pretty good fighter, because I'm going to get hit by this big guy if I don't concentrate.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell me what has been your biggest challenge in life, and how did you overcome it?
The dyslexia, probably. That a little bit of ADD, maybe some anxiety stuff here and there, but just dealing with it. Just dealing with what God has given me and working on that. Knowing my faults, knowing my attributes too, and knowing, just knowing myself. Also, I quit drinking 40 years ago too. So 40 something years ago, I was a wild, crazy guy that liked to fight. So I knew I was going to live long if I kept doing that. So, and drive, I like drinking and driving too, which luckily I didn't hurt anybody, and I thought it was kind of cool. And
40 years, huh?
40 years sober. Yeah.
Good for you. I have a friend who just posted about being sober today, and I've watched family members, I've watched friends that have struggled with alcoholism and addiction and different challenges. And it's so hard to watch from the outside, how destructive that
Absolutely.
And personally destructive, but how it affects everybody around you. And so I'm kind of drawn to congratulate everybody that gets sober, kicks the addiction, because you suffer, but the people around you suffer as well.
Absolutely.
And it's it's a brutal disease. So congratulations. I mean, 40 years, and I don't think for any alcoholic or any addict that it ever just like snaps and goes away and you never think about it. I'm sure that it's something, and although I've never understood it myself, I just don't think that could ever completely go away in your mind.
Yeah. Oh, I was a total, like, I used to drink to get drunk. So I just sleep with a bottle of vodka by my bed, but on the weekends or whatever, it was party time, and then I'd go, what did I do? I did that. Where did I drive to? And I started asking questions. How bad was I last night? But back then, like, I was a black belt, and all my friends were afraid of me, and they were big guys too. So it's like, was I a real big jerk last night, or was I okay? Who do I need to apologize to?
Yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah, so I don't have to do that anymore. I didn't have to do that for it seems like ever now,
Yeah. Well, good for you. That's awesome. What are you most proud of? What would you say has been your greatest accomplishment in life?
My family. My son up in Tahoe, teaching. He has a great big huge school up there, hundreds of students, has a cage, has he's made some fighters, go to the UFC. He's coached, he has, I think there's 13 or 14 belts he has up there that have world championship belts, in different leagues and stuff. And probably that. My new family now, I've been with the same girl for the last 8 years almost, and raising her. I've raised 3 sets of families. So I've only had one son, but I've had 3 wives basically, and 3 different sets of family. And I've got beautiful kids now that are into baseball and school and stuff. So maybe that's keeping me young, and I'm feeling good about that.
Right. Isn't that awesome that you get to kind of live vicariously through the kids to get to do all that stuff again?
Absolutely.
Well, hey, I'm going to throw this comment up here because Mr. Lacombe posted it. He said, you need to get a Chuck Norris black belt after all these years. Is that a challenge, or is that a goal?
It might be a little dig. Yeah, you need to get a trophy, Roger.
Oh boy. See, this is when the martial artists just start cutting up on each other. No, it's all good. Well, listen, I loved having Roger on the show, and I'm looking forward to. I'm trying to get Tom. I had him booked, and he had some life challenges, so I'm waiting to get him booked. But hopefully, I'll get him on here, and so many more. But
how about Johnny Gyro? He's a character.
He is a character.
He's a character.
We'll see. I don't know if that one will happen, but you never know. But listen, it's been great telling stories with you and hearing some of your stories and hearing the background.
Be able to tell some stories.
Yeah, it was a good time. So listen, guys, if you are watching this live or you're watching it on a replay, do me a favor, please subscribe to Master Motivation podcast on YouTube and share the video. Let more people learn more about Joey Escobar. And I wish you continued success. Next time I'm down in Malibu, I got to hit you up. Or if you're up in this way, just let me know.
Oh, for sure.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. This is Master Motivation, and wishing everybody an amazing week. We'll see you soon.
Bye.